Welcome back to another episode of Drop the Mitts Hockey Podcast brought to you in partnership with Primetime Productions. Fresh off a 4-3 overtime win over the number 3 Boston University Terriers and a 2-point night. Best name in college hockey, Gunnarwolfe Fontaine. How you doing, man?
Doing good. Thanks for having me.
Man, talk about that game last night. Incredible game. Got to watch the whole thing, and obviously, you had the primary assist at the end of that game on Dylan. Oh, I can never pronounce his name.
Ritscovian.
Yeah, unbelievable goal, that deflection, right? And looked like you kind of just put the puck on net. Talk us through that play, and that's a huge win for you guys.
Yeah, I think you were saying like the number three team in the country, like deservingly so. They have a lot of really high end talent, like Celebrini and Lane Hudson. They have the puck on
Yeah,
their stick. It seems like the whole game. So it's obviously really hard to shut them down. But it was a really good game up and down the ice, and we jumped out in the third period, and we had 3 goals, and I thought we were gonna run away with that. We were up 3-1, and but they dude, like good for them. They came back and they tied it up late. But yeah, like in that overtime. Like I knew we had a man up on the power play. We were running out of time. I think there was only like 30 seconds left in overtime. So I kind of I wanted to get the puck towards the net, and it was just an unbelievable tip by Dylan there on the back door. And he's having a great year so far, and he's just gonna keep lighting the lamp, I think.
yeah. You being one of the leaders of that team, like, what's the game plan going into a game like this? Obviously, you mentioned all this talent that BU has. Obviously everyone in college hockey and hockey as a whole talking about Macklin Celebrini, Lane Hudson being one of the best defensemen in the country. What was the game plan going in trying to, slow these guys down, and being able to keep them relatively quiet all game?
Yeah, I mean, obviously, like I said, like it's hard to keep those players quiet or like not or shut them down completely. They're gonna get their chances. They're such high end talents. They're gonna be playing in the National Hockey League for years on years. But no, our game plan didn't change too much. We knew that like with our game plan that we've been focusing on and we've been building on for the past couple weeks that if we played to the high end talent that we know we can compete with any team in the country. And I think that showed when we beat BC when they were the number one team in the
Yeah.
country in December. And then also like we barely lost to Quinnipiac a couple weeks ago. So I think that like we're sitting in a really good spot. Obviously, our record doesn't show too well with how we're doing, but I think the following games that we have coming up is just gonna really show that what we're capable of.
Yeah, you mentioned those huge wins that you guys have, and currently you guys are on a 3-game heater. What's been going right for you guys? As one of the leaders on the team, what's been your message to the rest of the guys? Like, what's been going right for you guys?
Yeah, I mean, obviously, like we at the beginning of the year, we had a lot of injuries that go through, so it's obviously hard to. You have a lot of guys jumping into spots that they've never really been into. We're switching around lines a lot, so it's hard to get into a flow. But now that we have our guys starting to come back and we're starting to get comfortable with each other, getting lines comfortable, just really a message of playing a 200-foot game and buying into like our systems and like playing a northeastern style of hockey. If you've ever been in like our locker room or been in like the dressing room of Northeastern, you would see like all these statues that we always have and like these levels that we always need to go to. And we always just stick to our systems and like we follow and like you always want to play for the guy next to you and we hold each other to those standards. So I think everyone's starting to really focus on that and it's just really starting to show on the ice, I think.
Yeah, and this time that you guys are getting hot right now couldn't come at a better time. Especially with the Bean Pot coming up. My favorite tournament of all, like, to go watch. Um, you know, Coming this Monday, you guys are going to be taking on Harvard. You guys got the 5 o'clock slate. For people who don't really follow hockey in Mass, or New England or whatever, so, like, how much does this tournament mean to you guys? Obviously, it's one of the biggest tournaments in Massachusetts, other than the Hockey East. Um, and then to caveat off that, this is your fourth year at Northeastern. Some incredible memories, I assume. I mean, there's been some incredible finishes, during these past 4 years. What's been your favorite memory of the Bean Pot?
Yeah, I mean, so starting off to that first part of that question, I mean, the bean pot's everything. It means everything to this school, to this team, to the coaching staff, everything. But it really just like this is a great jumpstart to get you going towards playoffs. There's only so many more games after the bean pot. before playoff starts, and it just really it's the first trophy that you can really earn, and it kind of just jump starts you right away towards the playoffs, which is huge. But the next part of that question is though it's there's so many good memories with playing the bean pot. It's everything you live for. Like I remember going to the bean pot when I was like 6 years old
Yeah, dude.
with my parents watching
Yeah,
the games and seeing Kevin Hayes and all those guys play.
yeah,
So it's weird sitting in that shoe now, and like it's gonna be my last bean pot. So it's obviously it's funny looking back, but I mean, it's hard not to look back at that memory last year of winning that bean pot, being able to hold that trophy over your head. It's something that I'll always remember, and I'll always have those guys with me. Like they'll be brothers for life because of
yeah,
that. And it's something like one of our assistant coaches, Jason Guerrero. He played here at Northeastern, and he never got a chance to win a bean pot. And when we finally won one that last year, it was it meant the world to him. And when he like held that trophy over his head, he legit said like it was like he was lifting it for all 30 of his teammates.
yeah.
But so it's just so cool. It just means so much to the alumni, the student body. It just means everything.
Have any of the guys reached out to you? Like we had a few weeks back, we had Aiden on, and obviously I had to ask him about the bean pot. Do any of those guys, as we get closer to Monday, reach out at all and kind of give you any tips, advice?
Yeah, obviously, like once it starts leading up. I mean, I had one of my buddies from last year. He thought the bean pot was last Monday, so it was kind of
Oh,
funny. But but he sent me good luck text and everything. But it just shows you like everyone just follows along. It's just that first Monday in February.
yeah,
Everyone just knows it's bean pot time, especially if you grew up in that New England area.
yeah.
But I mean, everyone starts kind of reaching back out around this time, just saying good luck and just knowing that they're there watching and just to do like what we know what we're capable of. Because I mean, we've won the last I think 4 or 5, so I think we're doing pretty good over here.
Yeah, man. And as far as having like the 5 o'clock slate, obviously, being able, to have that opportunity to play in this tourney. Do you have a preference as far as like playing the 5 o'clock slate rather than like, the later game? Because I feel like I don't know as far as like because I can remember even the 5 o'clock games having like huge student sections, like regardless. But I mean, once that second game rolls around, the entire garden is just packed. Do you have a preference as far as like what time, or does it not really, matter to you?
Well, for me personally, this will be my first time I got the early game in my career here,
Yeah,
so it'll be kind of news to me and like everything how it's going to be. I mean, I hope that we still have a student body that shows up and we still have a good crowd. Usually, our doghouse shows
yeah,
up pretty well for the bean pot. I don't know how well Harvard will do. They usually don't have the best, but but I'm sure BCBU that game will be packed later that night.
yeah,
With them being number one and number three in the country right now. But I mean, obviously, you want that later game because playing in front of those many people is so much fun. But
yeah,
like, I think when we just went and played in the Milwaukee tournament pretty recently, and we had the earlier game, and I think it obviously helps with just being able to rest a little bit. But I mean, we have a full week until we play, so I think everyone kind of has a little bit of time to rest up, so it doesn't really matter too much.
yeah. And like kind of talking about like obviously you guys must all be so fired up for it. Like, what's the message to the guys? Like, obviously you don't want to get to obviously you were it's Wednesday right now and you got a few days. You just had that huge win last night. What's the message to the guys, to get ready for this game?
Yeah, I mean, I right now we're focusing on Maine right now because
Yep.
obviously they're a top 10 team in the country. They're doing really good this year. So is everyone in Hockey East as well though. But I think we're just focusing on that, and then we'll focus on Saturday and Sunday,
Yep.
and that will be all towards the Beaner and towards Harvard. But yeah, I think we're just trying to keep our heads towards Maine right now and not really focus too much on the Beanpot and just let that come when it comes. But yeah, because Maine's gonna be a really tough test this Friday.
Yeah, man, you mentioned how loaded the Hockey East is this year. I mean, you guys are loaded yourselves, right? And like all these other teams, it's crazy how competitive the Hockey East is as a whole. I kind of want to go back to like your early years starting in mass prep. Obviously 2017, 2018, you played a season at Lawrence Academy, which is unbelievable prep hockey in Massachusetts. You play all those other fantastic teams, but what did Lawrence Academy do for your development? And also, yeah, like playing in that prep league, what did that do for your your development, whether it's on the ice, off the ice stuff?
I mean, it did almost. I feel like it did everything. It jump started me to the next level. When I was going to Lawrence Academy, I didn't have any D1 offers yet. I had never visited school. I wasn't talking. I wasn't drafted in the USHL, anything like that. And it was gonna be the first time I was moving away from home too, which obviously is a big step, like growing up a little bit. And so obviously it made me mature a little bit. But Coach Barker, who's the Lawrence Academy coach, he's been there for a really long time. He was the best guy ever for me. He really helped me develop my game and just gave me a lot of confidence and getting to play with players like Sam Colangelo out there as well,
Yep.
and like Riley Duran who went through there, Braden Doyle, all a bunch of draft picks. Like
Yeah.
Lawrence Academy was just kind of a hotbed for the past couple of years, and it was just unbelievable for me. And then after that year was over, after it was an unbelievable great year. We won small school. It was an awesome experience for me, but I ended up getting drafted by Chicago, and I went out there and went to main camp. I didn't think anything too much of it, and they called me in after camp, and they said I made the team. Obviously, that was a tough choice, but
Yeah.
me going back and forth with my mom, she wanted me to stay, but finally
Of
won
course,
that
right?
battle. Yeah, finally
Yeah.
won that battle, and got out there, and then
Yeah.
that just Chicago was unbelievable as well with all the help I had out there, and it was just an unbelievable experience.
Dude, still to this day, I think that Lawrence Academy is my favorite rink that I played in. Like coming up in Mass, like that rink is unbelievable. That ice is still to this day, like it sits in my mind as my favorite rink.
Yeah, it's so funny, and plus, like, we like, the home locker room, like, we're not even in the rink, we get dressed in trailers on the
Yeah.
outside, and when you to go shower, you gotta run to the other building, and so even when it's snowing or raining, you're just
Yeah.
running outside in just a towel.
Yeah.
It's so good.
Yeah, it feels great in the winter time. But,
Yeah.
yeah, you mentioned your 2 years with the, Chicago Steel of the USHL. Your first time away from home was Lawrence Academy, you being from, Rhode Island. Um, what was being halfway across the country, what was that adjustment like? Um, and then similar to the last question, how crucial were those 2 years, of you playing in the USHL? They're 2 unreal years. Obviously in 18, 19, and through 60 games, put up 20 goals, 23 assists for 43 points. And then the year after in 45 games, 26 goals, 31 assists, 57 points. What did playing for Chicago do for your development, to get you to the next level?
I mean, it did so much. They had so much high end like talent, like just working with us. I mean, my head coach my first year was Greg Moore. He ended up leaving with us out during my second year to go coach the Toronto Marlies because
Yeah.
he was just so unbelievably good of a coach. And my GM, Ryan Hardy, he ended up moving on to the Toronto Maple Leafs organization as well. Rock Sheehan just got moved to Notre Dame. All the people that worked there were just such high end talent. They knew so much. And then we had skill development with Adam Nicholas and then Daryl Belfry. I don't know if you've ever heard of them, but
Yep.
they're just they think the game differently, and they just helped so much. They were there every 2 weeks, and then bringing out iPads with us, showing us clips right there and then, and drawing us like different things. They're showing us what NHL players are doing right then in the league, and obviously when you have all those resources in front of you, it's so easy just develop, and you have so much time when you're on the USHL. Like, for me, like I know my first year when I went out there, my mom made me she made me go to school. She didn't let me do online school. She didn't want me
Oh,
to have all that time on my hands, and she didn't
yeah.
think I would do the schoolwork, which I mean, I probably wouldn't have. So thank God she
She's
did.
smart.
Yeah,
Yeah.
but it definitely kept me busy throughout the day, which obviously helped. Because I remember some of the guys saying the days got long, but it was unbelievable because like, it helps you like, kind of like act like a pro a little bit. You get that pro lifestyle
Yeah.
in a sense where you're playing 60 games. You don't really get that opportunity to play that many games. I think my first year with playoffs, I ended up playing close to 90 games. And like in college, you get 40 something games if you make it all the way to the national championship. So
Yeah.
it's a big difference. So it's Chicago. It was an unbelievable experience. I had billets that treated me like a second family, and like I still talk to them this day. They actually went and watched me play in Milwaukee a couple weeks ago, and so it
No
was just
way, dude.
yeah. So it's unreal. So they still keep in touch. So it's awesome, and just the experience you get out there just helps you mature so much. So I owe everything to Chicago, to be honest with you.
It is kind of crazy to think about, you going away your first time really far away from home, right? I mean, I was gonna ask you about the Billet family and what your experience was like. Like, was it almost like a culture shock being away from home at first and kind of, as you get to, hang out with the boys and start playing hockey, it kind of you start getting adjusted to things. Like, how were things right when you got there? Did you have a little bit of a hard time or were you able to just kind of ease into everything?
Yeah, I mean, you always hear like these horror stories of kids playing in
Yeah,
juniors and these billets, and so obviously you have all these crazy scenarios
yeah,
going through your head, and you have no idea what you're getting yourself into. But, I was lucky enough to have, like, one of my teammates there with me in my first year as Neil Shea, I think, I
Yep.
went to Lawrence Academy with, so it was obviously easier having a teammate there with you, but, I mean, the family that I lived with, they're called, the Silvestris, they welcomed me in right away. It was so, like, welcoming. I had my own room, my own bathroom, there was a pool outside. It
Oh,
was
nice, dude.
unbelievable. The whole
Living it
finished
up.
base yeah, whole finished basement, like, ping
Yeah.
pong table. They had all the work, so it was unreal, and they let me borrow one of their cars to go to the rink.
Oh, nice,
They treated me so well, and
man.
she made dinner, and the mom made dinner every night, and it was just unbelievable. And, my billet dad, he, actually worked he owned a chocolate factory, so he'd always bring
Did it,
candy and
dude?
stuff home. Yeah, so he'd bring candy home every now and then and stuff, so it was awesome. I love my experience out there, to be
I'm glad to hear that, man. Because yeah,
honest.
you mentioned it, like, you hear all these crazy stories, like, I've had a few guys on that they were just like, it was fine," like, I got through it, and I'm like, "Ooh, alright, well,
Yeah,
next question, I guess."
yeah, I've had teammates that have had to move out, like, and I've heard stories of, like, guys moving out in the middle of the nights, not telling their billets anything, and I've heard some crazy stories, but, I owe like, my billets were nothing but special.
Cool.
I love them.
Love
They
it,
were
dude.
awesome.
That's
Yeah.
awesome, man. I love to hear that. You've had 4 incredible years at Northeastern. Obviously, I went to school there for a couple years, and it's a great campus, great education, obviously. But during your recruiting process, what specifically was it about Northeastern that drew you to their program and the school as a whole? And then what's been your favorite part about being in Boston?
Yeah, so, I mean, I was actually when I was originally committed to, RPI on my earlier times, and I ended up decommitting because I didn't wanna be that, like, far away from home. Because I was playing like, you were saying we were just talking about, I was playing in Chicago for 2 years, and I think my mom only was able to watch me in person twice or 3 times, the whole 2
It's a
times I was
long
out
way, dude.
the whole 2 years I was out there.
Yeah,
So it's obviously hard for I want my family to be able to come watch me play, so that was obviously a big decision. So when I was visiting, I remember I visited Providence, but that was, like, a little too close to home. I felt
yeah.
like my mom was gonna be there. She'd have been I'd be get home from the rink, and she'd already been in my dorm room, like, "What's up?"
Yeah.
I was like, "What are you doing here?" But so then when I visited Boston, my sister was already actually going here at the time. She was on the women's team, and
Yeah.
I fell in love with it right away. I mean, the coaching staff and Jim Madigan, Coach Keefe, and, just I knew so many players, like, we just talked about Aiden McDonough and Sam Colangelo, Riley Hughes. There's so many guys that
Yeah.
I knew, like, growing up playing with and playing for, and it just felt right right when I stepped on campus, and I just knew it was the place for me, so it was pretty easy.
You mentioned RPI. Were there any other schools that you kind of closely considered? Like you mentioned, Providence. Was that like the next school? Like if you weren't going to go to Northeastern, it would have been Providence.
Yeah, like, I always wanted to play in the Hockey East, I think, because
Yeah,
like I was saying, like, I wanted to be close to home, so I think I always wanted to be one of those closer teams, so I think Providence probably was definitely up there. They were one of the teams that talked to me a little earlier on after I decommitted, and, and Coach Lehman, he's an unbelievably good coach, and they have a great program every year, so it was pretty easy to look there and say, like, that was a school I might have wanted to go to. And then obviously there's some powerhouses that reached
yeah,
out and things like that, but it just you never it was just wanted to be close to home. Like, that was the
yeah,
biggest thing for me, and I wanted to play in that bean pot like we talked about, and
yeah.
because I remember going back, like I was saying, when I was 8 years old, going there with my family. So, all those decisions kinda led into it, but, I'm glad I made this choice, and it was the best decision.
Off topic, dude. Like you mentioned Kevin Hayes being pot. Like I remember exactly like what that like being there for that, dude. Like it's literally my favorite tour. I can't wait for Monday, and it's gonna be awesome. But so 2020, the NHL draft, your name is called by the Nashville Predators. Um, Take us through that moment and what you remember from that day. Man, what was that feeling like? I mean, Nashville is such a sick city. Um, we actually just came back from there, just on so much fun. Take us through what you remember from that day and then that moment. Hearing your name called.
Yeah, I mean, that whole lead up to that was insane because that was the COVID breakout, and
Yeah,
it changed everything. Because I was actually I was out in Chicago playing my season. We got sent home during that time at that point, and, that's when, like, rankings were coming out, but then rankings got skewed because of COVID and all that. So I honestly didn't know, like, the draft was gonna come. Like, I was in some, rankings, I was high in some of them, I was lower in some, so I really didn't know what too much of the draft and what was gonna come, but, like I was saying, my friend Sam Colangelo, he was, gonna be a high draft pick, and I was at his house for the draft because it was all virtually, and, he ended up getting drafted, obviously, early in the day, really high in the 2nd round, and I was just kinda hanging around all day, I didn't really know too much, text my agents and every now and then just kinda seeing what's the word, and then finally, my name got called by Nashville, and it was a great experience. I mean, you work your whole life to get to the NHL, and now I'm just one step closer. And obviously, I've been to Nashville a couple times for development
Yeah,
camp now, and we'll see. But it's just they're an unbelievable organization down there. It's Nashville's an unbelievable city. It's so fun down there.
yeah.
But yeah, it was a great experience. I'll never forget that day.
What's your go-to place on Broadway?
I mean, Kid Rocks is pretty hard not to pass
Yeah,
out.
you're not a Tootsie's guy?
I mean, like that I mean, that's just, like, everyone goes there, so
Yeah,
it's like
dude, it's you
it's
can't
just, like,
even
the one known bar, so
you
it's like
can't even move in there. I like
yeah,
that's
exactly.
usually like an end of the nighter, like usually a
Yeah.
morning time, I guess. But
But, I
it's
mean,
just
like
so packed.
but every single bar is fun there, like, they have live
Yeah,
music going, and
yeah, it's the best.
it's crazy how some of them like, there's a band playing on each like, there's a band on each floor playing,
Yeah.
and it's like it's nuts.
Dude, we went to, Nashville, it was this past year, we saw Shania Twain, and it was just absolutely electric, dude. I was like, I never knew that it was gonna be this freaking crazy.
Yeah, it's
Um,
every day it's crazy down there, it seems like.
yeah, like a Monday afternoon, it's just, like, just as packed as, like, a Friday night. I'm like, "This is wild," but,
Yeah.
um, you mentioned it was that COVID year for, your draft. What was that, that process like, especially like the no combine, um, draft interviews, like what was that process like? And then also I always like to ask if you had any like bizarre draft questions. I love asking just because I've heard some like hilarious ones. As comparing yourself to an animal or whatever, like some pretty hilarious answers. Did you have any bizarre questions like that?
Yeah, I mean, it was a little bit ago, so I kinda forget some of them, but,
Yeah,
yeah, it was like you were saying, it's during right, like, when COVID happened, so, I mean, leading up to it, there was, like, draft interviews in person, obviously, during the year, you get called up to the offices upstairs, and every now and then you would talk to them, and it's always, like, the standard questions, like, trying to figure out, like, who you are as a person, all that stuff, but, yeah, it was definitely a weird experience because then once COVID broke through and the draft got pushed back and everything, and no one really knew what was exactly going to happen. It was all on the phone, getting phone calls or doing Zoom calls or whatever way you could get in touch. And it was really interesting, obviously. But me, like, I didn't. It was my 2nd year eligible being in the draft, and I didn't obviously talk to too many teams once the broke out because I think the teams were kind of focusing on the early rounds at that point because they didn't even know what was going on. Um, but it was a weird experience, but it was a great experience at the same time because obviously it was just leading up to a great moment for me. But yeah, it was fun.
So you've gotten the opportunity. You mentioned to go to Dev Camp a couple times. Um, what were your biggest takeaways from that week, whether it be on ice stuff? I know you guys do a lot of things off the ice as far as diet and workouts, and just learning how to be a pro. What were your biggest takeaways from that week?
Yeah, I mean, there's obviously a lot of takeaways. You're there with some high end talents. Like I was my first year, I was there with Philip Tomasino, and he's been playing the National Hockey League for the last 2 years, and he's on the power play. He's
Yeah, he's so
top two lines.
nasty.
Yeah, he's a stud. So you get to play with guys like that, and then you also get to play with college guys that are going through the same experience as you, and it's really interesting. You just learn so much, and then obviously they have so many resources there that you get to just take advantage of, and that you could learn so much of, and nutritionists that come in and they're making smoothies for you and they're showing you like
Yeah,
how to do them and like they're like I still get nutritionists calling me every month or so checking in. They have a mental coach that calls you every now and then, and there's just so many resources that just like you learn to like grow about and like that you just get to bring back to college and just keep learning more about and just get to pass on to your teammates, which is awesome, obviously.
yeah. Yeah, I wanted to ask you a little bit earlier, and I just completely forgot. But is there a player in the NHL right now that you try to emulate your game after, and just kind of see a little bit of yourself in?
Yeah, I mean, there's a couple players I look at. I mean, Like I was actually I talked to Nathan Gerby, who's the Nashville
Yep.
forward
He's
development
a
coach,
legend,
and
dude.
yeah, he's an awesome guy. So like, I mean, he's obviously very similar to my style. So I've talked to him a bunch, and he sends me some players. But he was sending me like Zuccarello and Garland players, and then like
Yep.
LeBanc, those like smaller guys that still get inside and just be gritty and but are very skilled and can make plays and everything
Yeah.
like that. So I like watching those guys, and it's always fun talking to Nathan Gerby though because he's a
Yeah.
legend and he knows so much obviously and played. He had a hell of a career.
Those are awesome comparisons because, yeah, like you mentioned, you're not afraid to get in there and muck it up a little bit, but you can, you also put the puck in the net too. So those are great comparisons. My last question for you, man, is, what would be your biggest piece of advice for kids coming up playing the game? Early on, kids playing whatever. You know, for the kids that want to take their game to the next level and play at such a high level, what would be your, a piece of advice you would give them?
Yeah, I would say, I mean, don't put too much pressure on yourself growing up. I mean, thankfully, they moved back the talking to colleges to when you're later date. I remember when I was coming up, like there was kids committing in seventh and eighth grade, and I thought it was already a rush to commit.
That's
Now,
crazy, dude. Like you're
yeah,
not
it was.
even like,
That's what I'm saying. So I was like,
yeah,
I remember I was rushing, and I was like, oh my god, I'm already behind. But no, like it takes a while. I mean, and it develops. Everyone develops at different ways, and everyone has a different path. I think and it shows. You can see that guys making it into NHL at 26 years old getting their first game, and there's guys
yeah,
playing the NHL at 18. You never know. But everyone has a different path. But I think you just gotta love the game, and you just gotta be able to work hard at it, and just everything you blocking a shot to scoring goals. You just gotta love it and be able to just live hockey. To be honest with you, but you just gotta have fun with it to be like and not have to put too much pressure on yourself. Like I was saying, I remember growing up. A lot of times you put too much pressure on yourself, especially in those younger days. You just want to have
yeah.
fun up there and just just learn hockey and just play the right way.
Yeah, I love that, man. Honestly, I cannot thank you enough for taking the time out of, obviously a huge W last night, and with you had practice today, so I can't thank you enough for for taking the time and coming on, man. I'm a big Northeastern guy, so I'll be rooting for you guys. I can't, I'll be in the building. So fired up for you guys. I wish you and the boys best of luck. I know you guys are gonna, kill them, and yeah, dude, thank you so much for joining us here and Drop the Mitts.
Oh, thank you so much. Thank you for having me on. This was fun.
Awesome, man. Thank you. That
Thank
was
you.
Gunnar Fontaine from Northeastern. Obviously, with the Beanpot coming up on Monday, a huge game. 5 o'clock slate. You guys can tune into Nessa and watch that. Definitely an unbelievable tournament. So again, can't thank you enough, man. Hope you guys all, take care and enjoy the rest of the episode. Thank you.